Hello and welcome to Insomniac Histories. Imagine standing in a compound of wooden buildings with curved tile roofs, watching cherry blossoms drift across a carefully raked gravel courtyard. The air is crisp and still. Somewhere nearby, you hear the rhythmic sound of a sword being sharpened on a whetstone. You are in feudal Japan in the year 1590, and you are samurai. You belong to the warrior class that has dominated this island nation for centuries, bound by a code of honor that values death over dishonor, loyalty over life itself. Tonight, we will walk through a day in your life as a samurai, from the moment you wake in your austere room to the moment you lay down to sleep, always aware that tomorrow might demand your death. We will feel the weight of your armor, taste the simplicity of your meals, and understand the rigid structure of society, where your sword gives you both privilege and terrible responsibility. This is not a story of epic battles and legendary duels, though those existed. This is a story of discipline, duty, and the daily reality of living as a warrior in a land where honor was more precious than gold. But before we begin, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It's a simple and wonderful way to support the channel, and it means a great deal to me. I'm also always curious to know where in the world and at what time you're joining me tonight, so I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. And now, settle in. Let the noise of the modern world fade away, and let us travel back to a time of katana blades, castle towns, and a warrior's code that still echoes through the centuries. Our story begins not in a castle or on a battlefield, but in your modest residence within the castle town of your daimyo, your feudal lord. To understand your life as a samurai, you must first understand the world into which you were born. Japan in the late 16th century is a land finally emerging from over a century of civil war. The Sengoku period, the age of warring states, has ravaged the country since 1467. Daimyo have fought daimyo. Province has battled province, and samurai armies have crisscrossed the land in an endless struggle for power. But now, in this year of 1590, a powerful warlord named Toyotomi Hideyoshi has nearly unified the country under his rule. The wars are not entirely over, but a fragile peace is settling over the land. You are the son of a samurai, born into the warrior class. This is not a choice. In Japan's rigid social hierarchy, you are what your father was. At the top are the samurai, perhaps 10% of the population. Below them are the farmers, who grow the rice that feeds everyone. Below the farmers are the artisans and craftsmen. And at the bottom are the merchants, despite their wealth, because they produce nothing. This hierarchy is becoming increasingly rigid under Hideyoshi's rule. He has begun to enforce laws that forbid anyone from changing their social class. A farmer's son cannot become a samurai. A samurai cannot become a merchant. You are locked into your position by birth. But being samurai is not simply about privilege. It is about obligation. You are Bushi, a warrior, and your entire existence revolves around service to your lord. Your family has served the same daimyo for 3 generations. Your grandfather fought in the great battles of the civil wars. Your father survived those conflicts and now serves as a minor administrator in your lord's domain. And you, at 25 years old, serve as a warrior in your daimyo's retinue, ready to fight and die at his command. You wake before dawn. The room is small and spare. The floor is covered with tatami mats, woven from rice straw and edged with cloth. These mats dictate the size of rooms in Japanese architecture. Your room is 6 mats, a modest space. There is almost no furniture. A low wooden pillow supports your head. Your bedding, a thin mattress called a futon, is folded and stored in a closet. There are no chairs. You sit, eat, and sleep on the floor. The walls are sliding paper screens mounted on wooden frames, allowing rooms to be reconfigured but offering no privacy from sound. You can hear your wife moving in the adjacent room, already awake and preparing the morning meal. You rise and dress. First, a loincloth, then a simple cotton underrobe tied with a sash. Over this, you wear a kimono, though samurai typically favor colors that are more subdued than the elaborate patterns preferred by wealthy merchants. Today you wear dark blue, almost black. The kimono is tied with an obi, a wide cloth belt. But most important is what you wear on top. The kamishimo, a formal vest and wide trousers, marks you unmistakably as samurai. The shoulders of the vest extend outward in stiff, wing-like projections. This garment cannot be worn by anyone outside the warrior class. It is your uniform, your identity. You kneel before a small wooden stand that holds your swords. Every samurai carries two swords. The daisho, literally big little. The longer sword, the katana, has a blade about 2 feet long. It is your primary weapon, though you pray you will never need to draw it outside of practice. The shorter sword, the wakizashi, is about 1.5 feet long. Together, these swords are not just weapons. They are symbols of your status, your honor, your very soul. A samurai who loses his swords has lost his identity. You carefully insert both swords into your obi, the katana on your left side with the cutting edge facing upward. This placement allows you to draw and cut in a single fluid motion. You have practiced this draw, the iajutsu, 10,000 times. The motion must be perfect, instantaneous, decisive. Your life might depend on it. But today is not a day of battle. Today is an ordinary day of service. You step out of your residence into the cool morning air. The sky is beginning to lighten, but the sun has not yet risen. You live in the castle town, a planned community built around your daimyo's castle. The castle itself dominates the landscape, a massive structure of stone foundations and wooden towers, rising several stories high. Unlike the later white plastered castles that tourists visit today, this castle is darker. It's weathered, its purpose purely military. The town radiates outward from the castle in organized districts. The samurai live closest to the castle, in compounds like yours. Further out are the districts of merchants and artisans. The farmers live in the surrounding countryside. This arrangement is deliberate. The samurai must be close to their lord, ready to respond instantly to any threat. You walk through the quiet streets toward the castle. Other samurai are emerging from their residences, all dressed similarly, all heading in the same direction. You exchange brief, formal bows. Conversation is minimal. Samurai culture values restraint, emotional control, and formality. To show too much emotion is to show weakness. You reach the castle and pass through the outer gates. Guards are stationed here, also samurai, who serve in rotation. They recognize you and allow you to pass with a nod. You proceed to the outer baileys, past storehouses and barracks, climbing gradually upward along a zigzagging path designed to make any attack difficult. Finally, you reach the inner citadel where the administrative buildings are located. You enter one of these buildings, removing your sandals at the entrance. Inside, you kneel in a large room with other samurai of similar rank. You sit in the formal position, saiza, kneeling with your legs folded beneath you and your back perfectly straight. This position is agonizing if you are not accustomed to it. Your legs go numb, your back aches, but you have been training in this posture since childhood. To fidget, to shift, to show discomfort would be shameful. Your day's duty is announced. You are assigned to administrative work today, helping to assess the rice production of several villages under your lord's control. Rice is the foundation of the economy. Your daimyo's wealth and power are measured in koku, units of rice production. 1 koku is the amount of rice needed to feed one person for 1 year, roughly equivalent to about 5 bushels. Your lord controls a domain producing 200,000 koku. This wealth supports his army, his administration, and his ambitions, but it must be carefully managed. You spend the morning with other officials, reviewing reports from village headmen. Each village reports its harvest, its population, any problems with weather or pests. You record these figures on paper using a brush and ink. The work is meticulous and tedious. This is not the glorious life of a warrior that you might have imagined as a child. There is no combat today, no dramatic sword fights. There is only paperwork, the unglamorous reality of maintaining a functioning domain. Around midday, you are released for a meal. You return home, where your wife has prepared a simple lunch. You kneel at a low table. The meal consists of rice, the foundation of every meal, served in a wooden bowl. Alongside it is miso soup made from fermented soybean paste, with pieces of seaweed and tofu. There is a small portion of pickled vegetables and perhaps a few bites of grilled fish. There is no meat. Buddhism, which has deeply influenced Japanese culture, discourages the eating of meat, though this taboo is not absolute. You eat slowly and deliberately, using chopsticks. There is little conversation. Meals are not social occasions in the way they might be in other cultures. They are functional, a necessary refueling. Your wife serves you but does not eat with you. She will eat separately after you have finished. This is the expected order of things. After the meal, you have a few hours of personal time before your afternoon duties. You go to the dojo, the training hall, located in a separate building within your compound. Here you practice. Samurai training is relentless and lifelong. You begin with kata, formal patterns of movement with your sword. These are choreographed sequences that teach proper form, balance, and technique. You perform them slowly at first, then with increasing speed and power. Each movement must be precise. Your teacher, an older samurai with decades of experience, watches critically. He corrects your posture, your grip, your footwork. The training is harsh. He does not praise. He only identifies flaws. This is the way of the samurai. Perfection is expected, not celebrated. After kata practice, you move to sparring. You face another samurai, both of you armed with bamboo swords, shurnai, rather than real blades. You wear protective armor, padded gloves, and helmets. The sparring is intense and painful. The bamboo swords strike with real force. You will have bruises tomorrow. You fight with full commitment, trying to land clean strikes on your opponent's head, wrists, or torso. He is faster than you, more experienced. He lands several strikes before you manage a single solid hit. Afterward, you bow to each other. There is no animosity, only the shared understanding that this training might someday save your life. The afternoon passes in more administrative work. You are assigned to help with tax collection, a duty that takes you into the surrounding countryside. You ride on horseback, accompanied by several other samurai and a clerk who will record the transactions. You visit a farming village. The farmers kneel as you approach, their foreheads pressed to the ground in deference. This is the expected behavior. Samurai have the legal right of kirisogomen, permission to cut and leave. If a commoner insults or challenges a samurai, that samurai has a right to kill them immediately without punishment. This is not a right you wish to exercise, but its existence shapes every interaction between samurai and commoners. The village headman presents the village's rice tax. The amount has been predetermined based on a harvest assessment, but there are always negotiations around hardships, poor yields, and special circumstances. You listen impassively as the headman pleads for leniency. A late frost damaged some of the crop. Several families have fallen ill. The village can barely meet the required tax. You are not unsympathetic, but you have your duty. Your lord requires this rice to maintain his domain, to feed his army, to fulfill his obligations to the shogun. The empire functions on rice. Without it, everything collapses. You make a small concession, reducing the tax by a fraction, but the burden remains heavy. The headman thanks you profusely, bowing repeatedly. You accept the thanks with a nod and move on to the next village. This is another reality of samurai life. You are not just a warrior. You are an administrator, a tax collector, an enforcer of order. Your sword gives you power over life and death, but most of that power is exercised through mundane bureaucracy rather than dramatic violence. As evening approaches, you return to the castle town. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the tiled roofs. You stop at a tea house, a small establishment where samurai gather. Inside, you kneel on tatami mats in a quiet room. A server brings you tea, whisked matcha prepared in the formal style. The tea ceremony, shinryu, is not just about drinking tea. It is a meditation, a ritual that embodies samurai values of simplicity, mindfulness, and aesthetic refinement. You cradle the rough ceramic bowl in your hands, feeling its warmth. You turn it slowly, admiring the subtle glaze, the imperfections that make it beautiful. You drink in 3 slow sips. The tea is bitter but cleansing. Other samurai sit nearby, speaking in low voices. The conversation turns to poetry. Samurai are expected to be warriors, yes, but also cultured men. You are expected to compose poetry, to appreciate art, to understand the fleeting beauty of life. This aesthetic sensibility is not separate from your warrior identity. It is integral to it. The understanding that life is brief and death is certain gives every moment a poignant beauty. You spend some time composing a short poem, a haiku. The form is simple. 3 lines, 17 syllables total, capturing a moment of natural observation. You write about the cherry blossoms you saw this morning, their petals falling like snow. Cherry blossoms are a powerful symbol in samurai culture. They bloom brilliantly for only a brief time, then fall at the height of their beauty. This is a samurai ideal. To live intensely, to die at the peak of life rather than withering into old age. As night falls, you return home. Your wife has prepared the evening meal. It is similar to lunch: rice, soup, pickled vegetables, perhaps a bit of fish. You eat in silence, then retire to your room. Before sleep, you perform one final ritual. You clean your swords. You draw the katana from its scabbard and examine the blade carefully in the lamplight. The steel is smooth and perfect, the edge razor sharp. You wipe the blade with rice paper to remove any oil or moisture, then apply a thin new coating of oil to prevent rust. This is not just maintenance. It is a meditation. The sword is an extension of yourself. To neglect it would be to neglect your own soul. You think about the code you live by, Bushido, the way of the warrior. This code is not written down in any single document. It is a collection of values and expectations that have evolved over centuries. Loyalty to your Lord above all else. Courage in the face of death. Honor that cannot be compromised. Self-discipline that borders on asceticism. And if you fail, if you bring shame upon yourself or your family, there's only one honorable response. Seppuku, ritual suicide by disembowelment. This is not a theoretical concept. You have seen it performed. A samurai who failed his lord, who lost a battle he was commanded to win, knelt in a formal room, opened his kimono, and drove a short blade into his own abdomen, drawing it across in a horizontal cut. The pain must have been unimaginable, but he did not cry out. An assistant stood behind him with a sword, ready to perform kaishiku, the mercy stroke that would sever his head and end his suffering once the ritual cut was complete. This is the ultimate expression of samurai honor. The willingness to die, not just in battle, but by your own hand if honor demands it. You lay down on your futon, the thin mattress, providing minimal cushioning against the tatami. The night is quiet. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a dog barking, the sound of footsteps on gravel. You think about your life, the weight of expectations that define every moment. You are samurai. This means you are privileged. You do not labor in the fields. You do not bow to merchants. You carry swords that give you power over life and death. But it also means you are trapped. You cannot choose a different life. You cannot pursue wealth as a merchant. You cannot flee your obligations. Your loyalty is absolute, your duty inescapable. If your Lord commands you to die, you will die. If he commands you to kill, you will kill. There is no option for refusal. This is the bargain at the heart of samurai existence. You accept that your life is not your own. It belongs to your Lord, to your clan, to your honor. In exchange, you receive status, respect, and a code of meaning that gives structure to every day. Many centuries from now, people will romanticize your life. They will make movies about samurai, glorifying the sword fights and the honor. They will practice your martial arts, study your philosophy, admire your aesthetic. But they will not understand the full weight of it, the constant training, the rigid formality, the ever-present possibility of death, the inability to choose your own path. But there is also beauty in this life. There is a perfection of a sword stroke executed flawlessly. There is a quiet of a tea ceremony, the stillness of a meditation garden, the brief glory of cherry blossoms. There's a bond with your fellow samurai, men who understand the same code, face the same dangers. There is the pride of serving your Lord with complete loyalty, of fulfilling your duty without complaint. And there's the knowledge that you are part of tradition that stretches back centuries and will continue long after your death. Your life is not your own, but it is part of something larger. As you drift towards sleep, you hear the sound of a temple bell in the distance, marking the hour. Tomorrow you will wake before dawn and begin again. You will train with your sword. You will fulfill your duties. You will maintain your honor. This is the life of a samurai. It is harsh and demanding and unforgiving, but it is yours, and you would not choose to be anything else. The days blur together, each one similar to the last. There are variations, of course. Some days you are assigned to guard duty, standing watch at the castle gates for hours without moving. Some days you accompany your lord on hunting expeditions, pursuing deer or boar in the mountains. Some days you attend formal ceremonies, wearing your finest clothing and maintaining perfect posture for hours. And some days, though less frequently now that Hideyoshi has brought a measure of peace, there is war. When war comes, everything changes. You don your armor, layers of lacquer metal, and leather plates tied together with silk cords. The armor is heavy, restrictive, and ornate, with a helmet topped by a crest meant to intimidate enemies and identify you on the battlefield. You mount your horse and ride to war alongside your lord and your fellow samurai. The battles are chaotic and terrifying. The popular image of samurai warfare is one of individual sword duels, but the reality is quite different. Most samurai carry bows as their primary weapon. You fight as part of a unit, firing arrows at enemy formations, then charging with spears. The katana is a backup weapon, used only when close combat becomes unavoidable. The battlefield is a nightmare of noise, smell, and confusion. Men scream. Horses whinny and bolt. Blood soaks into the earth. You focus on your training, on your duty. You fight not as an individual, but as part of your lord's army. You follow orders without question. Victory means glory for your lord and possibly reward for you. Defeat might mean death, or worse, capture and humiliation. But even in war, the code of Bushido applies. You fight with honor. You do not strike down a fleeing enemy from behind. You do not torture captives. And if you take an enemy's head as proof of your valor, you treat it with respect, for that head once belonged to a warrior like yourself. After the battle, if you survive, you return home. You clean your armor and weapons. You visit the shrine to give thanks. And then you resume your ordinary life of training and service. The war becomes a memory, another chapter in the endless cycle of duty and honor. Years pass. You grow older. Your skills remain sharp, but your body begins to show the wear of constant training and occasional combat. You marry, though the marriage is arranged by your family for political or economic reasons. You have children. Your son will be samurai like you. Your daughter will be married to another samurai family, creating alliances and obligations. You are now part of the web of relationships that hold samurai society together. You advance slowly through the ranks of your lord's retinue. You are given more responsibility, supervising younger samurai, managing larger estates. You become one of the senior administrators, respected for your experience and your unwavering loyalty. But you are still bound by the same code. You still train with your sword. You still wear your two swords every day. You are still ready to die at your lord's command. The world around you is changing. Toyotomi Hideyoshi dies in 1598. A new power struggle begins, culminating in the Great Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. Tokugawa Ieyasu emerges victorious and establishes a new shogunate that will rule Japan for the next 250 years. The long peace, the Pax Tokugawa, begins. For samurai, this peace is both a blessing and a challenge. There is no more war, which means no more opportunity for glory on the battlefield. Samurai increasingly become administrators and bureaucrats rather than warriors. But the code of Bushido remains. The swords remain. The training remains. And the identity of samurai, of warrior, remains central even as the reality of your life becomes more and more bureaucratic. One day, when you are old, you will kneel in your garden and look at the cherry blossoms one last time. You will think about your life. You served your lord faithfully. You maintained your honor. You passed on your traditions to your son. You lived, and when the time comes, you will die as a samurai should. This is enough. This is everything. The life of a samurai in feudal Japan was not the romanticized existence of popular imagination. It was not all dramatic sword duels and noble death poems. It was a life of constant discipline, rigid hierarchy, and unwavering duty. It was a life where your individual desires were subordinate to the needs of your lord and your clan. but it was also a life of deep meaning. Every action had purpose. Every moment was guided by a code that gave structure and significance to existence. The sword you carried was not just a weapon. It was a symbol of your soul, your honor, your place in the world. And the cherry blossoms that fell each spring reminded you that life is brief and death is certain, and that this impermanence is what makes every moment precious. If you had lived as a samurai in feudal Japan, you would have known the weight of armor and the sharpness of a blade. You would have tasted simple rice and bitter tea. You would have knelt on tatami mats until your legs went numb and practiced sword strikes until your arms ached. You would have collected taxes from bowing farmers and served your lord without question. You would have lived with a constant awareness that tomorrow might demand your death, and that this death might come by your own hand if honor required it. You would have been trapped by birth into a rigid social class, unable to choose a different path. But you would also have been part of tradition that valued discipline, aesthetics, and honor above all else. You would have experienced the austere beauty of a tea ceremony, the perfection of sword perfectly forged and perfectly wielded. You would have understood that your life was not about personal happiness or individual fulfillment, but about duty, loyalty, and honor. And in understanding this, you would have found a kind of peace. And so our journey through feudal Japan comes to a close. We have walked through a samurai's day, felt the weight of their code, and glimpsed the reality behind the legend. It has been a true pleasure to be your guide through this extraordinary chapter of history. Thank you for listening. Until our next journey into the past, I wish you a calm and peaceful night.